If you're trying to scale Google Ads profitably, then I've broken down everything that you need to do step by step, my exact optimization process that we call the Seesaw method. This process has been refined over and over for the last roughly 5 years across the near 100 brands that we work with at the Moonlighters. What I'm about to share could literally be the difference between scaling profitably and literally burning hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in Google Ads. So what I have on my screen right now is the basic foundation for the Seesaw method. You can see very quickly there's a lot of breakouts, there's a lot of different fundamentals to this method and processes within. The most important thing we need to understand is there is a division right down the middle of the screen. There is one side where you are hitting your target and there's another side where you are not hitting your target. Now, I want us to very clearly understand that even if you're hitting your target, what that usually means is you are leaving scale on the table, and I'll walk through the very simple things that you need to do on that end. And if you are not hitting your target, I'll walk through how you can aim to start hitting your target more often, and then when you do, scale from there. So we need to start with the most important foundation, which is our bidding strategy. And when you go to create a new sales campaign in Google Ads, you're going to have the option to create a bidding strategy. I'm always selecting the sales objective, and we're only using the purchase event. And for this method, it actually doesn't matter if you're using Performance Max, shopping, demand gen, even search and video. This applies to all campaign types because it is specifically applicable to Google's smart bidding algorithm. So to keep things simple, I'm just going to set up a Performance Max campaign. And this is where the very first part of this process begins. We have to select our bidding strategy. Now, if you're already running campaigns, then you've already selected your bidding strategy. But if you haven't already set up your campaigns and this is your very first time doing so, then this is exactly what I would recommend. First, you have to note we have two options here, conversions and conversion value. So the way that we make our distinction between these is actually quite simple, but heads up, there's some caveats here. Generally speaking, if you're an e-commerce store that sells a variety of products, you want to run on conversion value. If you are a single product store, then you want to run on conversions. So an example of a business that I would run for conversions would be like a subscription business like Athletic Greens or BarkBox. On the flip side, most businesses operate for conversion value. They care more about target return on ad spend than target CPA. For those businesses, we run for conversion value. Another way to think about this is when you click conversions, you'll see you could set a target cost per action, also known as target CPA. And when you click conversion value, you can set a target return on ad spend. So if you care more about ROAS, run for conversion value. If you care more about target CPA, then run for conversions. Now on my chart right here, it's important to note that this only applies once you start setting your targets. So how do we get to the point where we know what targets to set? If this is day one of running either a new campaign or this is day one of running Google Ads in general, then you're not setting a target return on ad spend. You're not setting a target CPA because all you're going to do is constrict the algorithm, and we don't want to do that. We need to allow Google to run free. So to kick off, you have no target and you're just going to see what data flows in. Once you start to collect data, then we can go ahead and set a target return on ad spend, or on the flip side, set a target cost per action. For this example and moving forward throughout the rest of this video, I'm going to be using target ROAS as my example, but just note that everything I say here applies to target CPA just the same. So before we begin the method, we have to set our targets, and the way that we want to set our targets is equal to our actual target. So we're not going to pretend that we need a 10x return on ad spend if we only need a 2.5. We need to give Google the most accurate target possible, because unlike a cost cap on Facebook, Google will actually restrict your budget more frequently if it can't hit its target. And that's exactly the relationship that we want to create. So once we set our targets to our actual real target return on ad spend, we're going to go in one of two directions. First, we could either be hitting the target, or second, we could not be hitting the target. Let's go through the scenario of hitting the target. If you are hitting your target, this then could break down into two different buckets. You could either be spending your budget in full every single day, or not spending your budget in full. The easiest part of this entire Seesaw method happens when you're hitting your target and you're spending your budget in full. This is the case that we want all things to get to. We want to hit our target and we want to spend our budget. And once we're doing that, all we do is increase spend. We literally increase spend by increments of 10 all the way to 50% depending on how much you're spending. If you're spending very little, like $10, $20, $50 a day, don't be afraid to increase by a larger percentage. Okay, so just so I'm clear, everything here on this left side, when we are hitting our target and spending the full budget, all we're doing is increasing spend. We want to do that infinitely because that means we are acquiring new customers at a cost or at a return on ad spend that is acceptable to our target for our business. But what happens when we're not spending the full budget? So take this for example. I have a $250 budget. My target ROAS is 500% and I'm getting a 6.26 return on ad spend. That means I'm hitting my target, but I'm not actually spending the full amount. And we can see that the blue line here being $150, $100, $100, $94, $107, $104, $105, $110. At no point are we even close to $250 despite us actually being over our target return on ad spend. So in this scenario, we follow a progression. That progression starts by first increasing the budget by 20%. This sounds ridiculous because we're already not hitting our budget, but just as a tinkering point, what we've noticed is that just increasing the budget 10, 20, 30% is going to give a little bit of signal to Google and create some wiggle room between where you're currently spending and an upper threshold. So we increase the budget to the tune of roughly 20%. If we're still not spending in full, then we're going to decrease our target return on ad spend 10%. And if we're achieving over the target by a large margin, then we could decrease our target even further. So what we're trying to signal to Google is that we want to spend more money. We're trying to signal to Google that it's doing a great job. And at this stage, if it's still not spending its budget, then we need to pull back and look at a few things. The first thing we need to understand is that Google uses a 30-day attribution window for all bidding strategies. So it tries to favor more recent days to understand if they will do better for the future. However, that target that you set, that target ROAS, that is attributed over a 30-day window. So Google aims to hit that target within a 30-day span. So there is a chance that the success you might be having in this short 7 to 14-day window is being actually hindered because the previous 14 days were just simply not as good. We see this often happen during sales period, big promotions, etc. But let's say that is not the case. Let's say you truly are still not spending your budget and there's no other factor in play here. The 30-day window is being attuned to. There's three options. First, you're capped. Your spend, your search, your product doesn't have as much literal available space, and this is the threshold for how much you can spend. I want to mention this is extremely unlikely. Second, this is now your opportunity to re-review your product and your search terms. Make sure the best products that you actually want to advertise are getting the most amount of spend. Get rid of the fat in this case, and also look through your search terms on your Performance Max campaigns to make sure you're not overspending in the wrong places. This is especially possible if you're overspending on branded terms. And then finally, hand in hand with these two, review your asset groups. Refresh if you need to, make sure your most updated headlines are in place, and actually take that hour to 2 hours to actually redefine your copy because it's going to go a long way to make sure your most relevant ads are showing up. By the way, if you want this entire flowchart just so you can see it really easily in front of you, click the link down in the description and I'll send it to you 100% for free. Now on the right side of this flowchart, we have the not hitting target, and this is where things get more and more complex. If you're not hitting your target, you're not a happy camper. And the worst thing that Google could do is it could not hit your target and spend your full budget. So you're spending $100 a day, $1,000 a day. You set a target return on ad spend of, let's say, 300%, and you're getting a 2. That doesn't seem fair to me. You should not be spending your full budget if you're not hitting your target and you've clearly defined that target to Google. The easiest solution here starts with increasing your target by 20%. Literally as simple as it gets. You have a 300% target, move it to 360 because that's 20% on the 300. If you have a 100% target, move it to 120. And this part right here is a non-stop flywheel. If you're not hitting your target and you're spending your budget in full, increase your target by 20%. If you're still spending your full budget, increase your target by 20%. Now on the flip side, if you're not hitting your target and you're not spending your budget in full, then you have a bad ad. This is very important for people to understand. Google is not magic money. Just like Facebook ads, just like all other ad platforms, what you put in has a direct relationship to what you get out. So at this stage, we jump right into product evaluation. We want to look and make sure that all the correct products, our best-selling products, are actually serving. And if they're not, trim out the ones that are serving too much and make sure your top products are getting 90+% of the ad spend. After that, do a CPC to CVR analysis. This is your cost per click compared to your conversion rate. For example, if you have a $1 cost per click, that means it's going to simply cost $1 to get someone to your site. And if you have a 1% conversion rate, that means that 1 out of every 100 people that visit your site actually convert. So what this means is you'll spend $100 to get 100 people to your site, and one of those people will convert. You'll spend $100 to acquire that customer. And you could probably see how you could tweak those CPCs or those conversion rates to actually understand what is possible for your business. Because if you know cold traffic converts only at 1%, but your cost per clicks are $9, you're going to have a really hard time making money unless your average order value is really, really high. After you do a CPC and CVR analysis, next step is just like before, look into those asset groups, make sure not only your products, but all your images, all your headlines, all your descriptions, your promotions, and your site links are A++, because your competitors are A+, and that's the reason they're beating you in the auction. And it is so important because the only way you can get those CPCs down is by having a perfect asset group. So why do we even call this the Seesaw? Because really, I'm giving you two different separate options, one of which you're spending full budget and hitting your target, and B, where you're not spending your full budget and you're not hitting your target. But really this happens because the objective of any campaign is to get as close to spending your budget as possible, meaning if you have $1,000 budget, you spend around $800 a day, while also achieving your target. This ensures that you're limiting Google, right? So you're putting the constraint on Google. You're kind of dangling the carrot in front of the algorithm to get it to work harder for you. And we call this the Seesaw method because what naturally happens is when you're hitting your targets, you're increasing your spend and you're keeping your target return on ad spend the same. And then when you're not hitting your target, you're either A, increasing your target return on ad spend, or decreasing your spend. And this kind of constantly happens. Even though it sounds great to just set your target once and set your budget once, to be honest, that's lazy. That's a way that you won't actually scale your business. You'll just maintain whatever sales you're doing today. If you actually want to grow, what's naturally going to happen over time is some days you're going to spend more money, other days you're going to have to move it down. But hopefully in time, as you seesaw this, your total spend, as you can see by this line I'm creating right here, continues to go up. The seesaw is always going to have ups and downs, but as long as generally it's trending in the right direction over long periods of time, your business is going to grow. That is my Google Ads scaling method. That is how we optimize at the simplest level. If you want someone to do this method for you and way more, because this is truly scratching the surface, then click the link down below and go to the moonlighters.com/apply to see if you're a fit to work with us. That's all for today. I hope you got a ton of value out of this, and I'll see you in the next one.